Welcome back to another episode of Creating Freedom. I'm your host, Sean Gray, and with me, as always, my co-host, Sean Winters. Today, we were having a conversation. We hopped on and started recording like how we do, and our conversation had to do with a concept called willful blindness. And it's a concept that first was introduced to me by Jordan Peterson. And I know, Sean, you're an advocate and a follower of Jordan Peterson's message as well. Learned a lot from him. But let's talk about this concept of willful blindness, what it means, and how we can. Is it good? Is it bad? Do we use it? Do we not use it? What do you think? Before I tell you how I interpreted it.
Yeah, good question. I think like a lot of other things, it can be used for both good and bad purposes, right? I think of like willful blindness in some matters that really are important, like family relationships or money or stuff like that. Maybe is not such a good thing, but like willful blindness in like maybe thinking about I don't know, like people negative energy coming at you might be a good thing. So that's kind of how I'm taking it from this top level, surface level.
Okay, yeah. I could see that, like willful blindness, like I'm choosing to ignore this.
Yeah.
Right? I'm choosing that. That's an interesting spin on it. That's definitely different than how I interpreted it when I heard it. Maybe it had to do with the context, which is also important when you do hear stuff, the context, like we were talking about the other day in our other video about Kanye. But how I interpret willful blindness was, and maybe it was, again, the context that he was saying was that when an outcome happens that you don't necessarily like, you can't claim like ignorance, right? You can't be like, oh, I didn't know, right? Well, if the information was available to you and you chose to ignore it, you chose not to know, then that's your responsibility, right?
Well, then, I mean, take a step back and like, are these people really choosing, right? Or are they just choosing not to think for themselves and not actually? Because I think quite often it's more of maybe a auto run kind of like program that they run, or like from my perspective, easiest way to think about it is just a script that they run.
Right.
So I don't know if I guess you could say that they're choosing to not think for themselves, which is essentially not a good thing, right?
Right. I mean, the most common example, and obviously because of the people I'm connected to in the worlds that I work in of, personal development, financial education, entrepreneurship, investing, that type of thing, I see it kind of play out with money, right? The difference between, as Robert Kiyosaki would say, the left side of the quadrant and the right side of the quadrant, or the difference between poor and rich, really, it's the way people think. And in money, right, a lot of people will blame the 1%, say, oh, it's the 1%'s fault that they're keeping us down and why I'm not rich, or why I don't have, where I'm not where I need to be or where I want to be financially, it's rigged against me, right? However, they can't really blame it on that, because yes, very well be true. The game may be rigged against you, but the information's still available to you. So you can't get mad at the 1% for utilizing the information that's also available to you.
Yeah, no. And that's why I've kind of adopted this method, and hopefully, a lot of folks out there can take this and, kind of empower themselves in their life. One thing I always try to do is get to the root, right? Mm-hmm. And something that you've always pointed out is like asking as many questions, ask as many whys until you get to that root. And for me, the simple way to do it, and just keep it real simple and easy, keep it super stupid simple, is I'm personally responsible for everything that happens in my life. Even if I walk outside and get hit by a car, like, I shouldn't have walked outside at that time. At least at that point, I feel more in control of like my outcomes and what I learn, what I take in.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think that there's a difference. I think people will be like, oh, just assume everything's your fault, right? But I think there's a difference between fault and responsibility, right? And I think it's a key distinction to make, because yes, like back to the money example. Yes, it may not be your fault that the system is rigged against you. Yes, it may not be your fault that, you didn't have a dad to give you $1 million, right? It may not be your fault that, whatever the case, but the minute that you become aware of it, and, the minute you become aware that, hey, the answer is out there, right? Now it becomes your responsibility. I mean, I feel like it's the same thing with triggers from growing up when we were kids, right? You know, it's not really our fault that our parents left us, in the parking lot, right? And it caused some issues for us. It's not really our fault that our parents got a divorce, right? When we were young, or whatever the case. But it is our responsibility because it is our life.
Yep. Yep. And that goes back to what we talk about on a regular basis, is just because that programming, those scripts in our mind exist, doesn't mean we have to keep running them. So taking a step back, breaking the pattern. I'm really starting to understand this. Like, everything's a pattern. Habits are patterns, right? How can we break that pattern of blaming others, not taking personal responsibility for our lives, and then instead actually add new patterns to new types of emotions, new types of thought processes, new types of way of thinking about and dealing with money.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you do take that responsibility for everything in your life, it honestly becomes liberating. It becomes empowering. And really, again, that's what we're here to do. Our whole mission is creating freedom, more, social, financial, and most importantly, personal freedom for you. So my closing thoughts is take responsibility, understand that not everything's your fault. So don't put the guilt on yourself, but take the responsibility, and you'll feel empowered to take action and create more freedom for yourself.
Hell
Sean?
yeah. Great. Yeah. Same here. Everybody, if you can, keep it super simple and stupid simple, and just take personal responsibility for everything in your life, relationships, money, work, everything. And then you really can't go wrong from there.
All right. Well, thanks again, Sean, for always joining me. And I love our conversations. Hopefully you all are enjoying them too. Like, subscribe, leave some comments, start the conversation. We'll hop on and talk with you too. Here's to creating more freedom.